Welcome, all future debt-free millionaires. This is Zach Edwards with another episode of the Debt-Free Millionaire podcast and personal finance course. I'm so excited to talk to you today. So today we're actually going to be talking about something we've been mentioning the last few days as we've been talking about debt, but we haven't actually talked about this one thing, and that's really important. It's called a credit score. What is a credit score? Okay, so to do this, I thought I'd bring on a friend to see what he has to say. So let's bring him up and let's try it out.
Everyone knows that the highest credit score that you can get is 1,000.
That's what I meant. I messed up the words. It was a flub. You know, when I said 100, I just forgot the other zero.
Yeah.
Different word. 1,000 credits is what I meant to say. Totally 1,000 credits.
That's your credit score.
Okay, so to be clear, credit scores don't go up to 1,000. The scale runs from 300 to 850. And while I'm at it, there are a few other things you should know too.
Come on, run.
A credit score is a portrait of someone's credit history, made up of several factors that we'll cover in a moment. This number is placed on a scale that helps prospective lenders evaluate how likely you are to pay your debts. This in turn determines what kinds of loans you can get. There are 5 factors that determine your score, and they all have varying levels of importance. Payment history is the most important piece of your credit profile, and it accounts for roughly 35% of your score. Makes sense, too. If you've been responsible in the past, you can probably be trusted in the future. So avoid late payments at all costs. Amounts owed, or credit utilization, is the second most important factor, coming in at about 30% of your score. Now, this part is important because notching a good credit score doesn't mean that you don't borrow. In fact, not using your credit is almost worse than using tons of it. You want to show that you can handle a reasonable amount of debt without going off the rails. One of the more obvious factors in a credit score is the length of your credit history, which counts for 15% of your number. It's like in those old movies where a shop owner lets one of his regulars run up a tab because he knows he's good for it. Same goes with credit. The longer you've been borrowing, the better. Finally, types of credit and new credit each account for 10%. Types of credit reviews how many sources of borrowing you use, like a car loan, mortgage, and credit card. The more diverse, the better. New credit takes into account how often you take on credit you don't need, like applying for a credit card at 5 of your favorite new stores. So while you can't have a credit score of 1,000, you can make sure you're taking the right steps toward a great credit score. Come to think of it, I think tacos do sound pretty good right about now.
Tacos. That does sound good. Hey, so this was actually put together by both, as far as I can tell, Wells Fargo and Mashable. Now, Mashable is a website that basically it's like hot topics that they want to put out, but also funded by Wells Fargo because they want you to borrow from their bank. So, okay, so that is an option to do. So you can borrow in order to get credit. You can get credit so you can borrow more. You borrow more so you get more credit. Wait a second. This just makes me think of, okay, they are perpetually putting you in further and further into debt. Okay, now they do actually want to see you pay off your debt, which is one of the great things about a credit score. It actually wants you to know it's not just for the lenders, it's also for you. If you're having issues financially, your credit score usually shows it. Again, what is a credit score? It's basically a number that represents how likely you are to pay back your money, to pay back your loans, whatever debt you have, to pay it back. And it starts off at 300 and it goes up to 850. Now a normal is, or an average is somewhere around the 600 point. But in order to get a good loan and a good interest rate, you have to be above that point. So some of the things that they take into mind, and Cal just gave this, payment history. If you're paying off your bills every month and you're not missing them, you're not getting extra fees, and your credit score goes up. Great. Okay. Amount that you owe. If you max out all your credit cards, your credit score is going to drop because you're not likely to pay off your debt, like pay it off completely, because you're still just racking up more debt. And if you're trying to get another credit card after racking up everything else, they're going to see that as well. Length of the credit history. So back when I was in college 20 years ago, I got myself a credit card. Well, funny enough, I just dropped my last credit card because of some of the things that they were doing that I did not agree with. And because I got rid of the card, my credit history tanked a little bit. It dropped a little bit. Didn't tank. It dropped a little bit because that was the longest history that I had was with that one credit card. Luckily, I have a second one that actually had good history, and that's what I use for my backup. I try not to use it as much as possible, but if I have to, I do. So that's length of the credit history. The next one is the credit mix. So this is where you put all of your debt. Do you have a mortgage? Do you have auto loan? Do you have school education or educational loans? And credit cards, personal loans. The more it is diverse, the better your score gets because they can see that you can handle all these different types of debt. The last one is new credit cards. Now this is a big no-no when it comes to trying to get your credit score up, is do not just keep getting new credit cards. Every time you get a credit card, it's actually going to drop your account because for some reason, you're getting more credit, and banks can become questionable about that. So now, yesterday we were talking about how to pay off your debts because truthfully, that's the healthy part to be. Now, as Cal put it, the less you use your credit, the worse it's going to be for your credit score. That's fine. Your job is not to make the credit companies happy, the credit bureaus. There's actually 3 of them. There's Experian, there's Trans, I can't remember right offhand. Give me a second, I'll come to me. But TransUnion and Equifax. There you go. Thank you. Okay. So these 3 bureaus want to see your credit score go up, and so they will give you benefits. They'll incentivize you. They're gamifying it to get your score up by you paying off your debts or doing things like this. So what you want to do ultimately, because again, you want to become a debt-free person or a millionaire or a debt-free millionaire, even best. That's the best thing you can do. And in order to do that, you basically have to destroy your credit score. And the reason why you're going to do that is because you're not going to be using your credit as much as they want you to. That means you're not going to be pulling out more debt like they want you to. Now, you're going to have a good credit score as long as you're paying it off. But as soon as you start paying off all your debts, that credit score disappears. You might have a credit card, but if you're not using it, it's still going to hit you negatively. So you want to be able to, if you want to have a credit card, you want to be able to use it. If you do not want a credit card and you want to be self-reliant, in the end, your loans are going to disappear. You're going to pay them off. Done deal. Wipe your hands. You're done. Now, this is, I'm going to give you some of the pointers of how it looks when you're paying off your debt. So the first thing is, it'll improve your payment history. Again, that's 35% of what your score is about. Now, with that being your score, if you pay off your debt in constant payments, it's going to see you're responsible and that you're more likely to borrow, and then less likely to borrow, more likely to pay back your debts. So they want to see that. Now, it also reduces credit utilization. So paying down credit card balances lowers your credit utilization ratio, which is the second most critical factor in your score. So this is 30% of your score. Remember, this is the amount that you owe. The more that you owe, the worse it is for your credit score. The less that you owe, but still having some, will make your credit score better. So that's just something to know about a credit score. Now, length of history. Again, we already went over this. It's basically how long you've had your credit cards or your loans for, how long you've been paying them off. Now, if you have a mortgage, it's 30 years worth of guaranteed good credit as long as everything else goes well. You get rid of your mortgage, your credit score is going to drop because it's not diverse, which is the next one, and it's also not, you're not showing that you want to borrow more debt. So, but that's a balance that you have to make. Do you want debt, or do you want to get out of debt? If you're not in debt, do you want to get into debt? Hopefully not. Hopefully you're going to just start paying things on your own. Now, there are actual mortgage companies that will allow you to borrow for a mortgage if you have zero credit. This is basically where you go to them and you show them how responsible you are, paying back your bills, paying off your debt and how you did that. They want to see that you're going to more likely to pay back those loans. And so you can actually get a loan still without a credit score. But those are very rare lending agencies, mortgage companies that do. So now what can you do with a good credit score if you want to have a good credit score? One, you can get your loans approved. So if you want a loan, there you go. You get a good credit score, you get approved. You can lower your interest rates. You can actually work it out with your credit cards to lower your interest rates because you have, again, good credit, because they know you're going to pay, that you are going to pay back. Otherwise, you're going to leave them. So better credit card offers. Now these are high limits or better rewards, airline miles, cash back. All these things have to do with good credit. But again, all those things are gimmicks in order to have you pay. Now remember, the credit card companies are not just being paid from you every month. They're being paid by every time you swipe your card. They take a percentage from that retail store to pay their revenues, to increase their revenues. So they want you to latch on to them. They actually want you to use their credit cards because they're going to get paid no matter what from you or the retailer that you're buying from. Next one, housing opportunities. Yes, landlords love looking at applications. And if you're going to rent, you're going to need that. If you're going to get a mortgage, you're also going to need one. Possibly. As I said, you don't exactly need one, but this is one of the biggest lines that everyone gives you when it comes to credit scores. You want to buy a house, right? Yeah, I want to buy a house. Do you want to rent? Yeah. Either one, you need to have a credit score. That's not true. For renting, yes, you need a credit score. Or I actually rented to a lady that doesn't have a credit score. And why is that? Because she's like 26 years old, no credit history whatsoever. She owns her own car, she owns her own stuff, and she has no student loans. You know, to me, that just shows that someone that is going to paying back their loans or paying their rent because they're very responsible with their money. But again, these are the two things to think about. Rent, most landlords are going to look for a credit score, and mortgage, every mortgage company is going to look for a credit score. And if you don't have one, you're going to have to explain it, but there are some that will allow you to not have a credit score. So just so you know, employment prospects. Yes, even your employer can look up your credit score. You're going to give them your social security. They're going to want to look at how good you are at paying back your debts. This shows how responsible you are. Because if you don't pay back your debts, no legitimate employer wants to hire you on because they don't know how well you're going to be responsible with working with them. And also utility services. Now, interesting enough, it requires a deposit if you have lower credit scores, but it still requires a deposit. Most of them do with even a good credit score. So it's not really a big one when it comes to utilities, but we're mentioning it because depending on your utility company, it could be. So let's talk about ways of maintaining a healthy credit score if you so desire to have a credit score. Again, it's not advised, it's not recommended, but if you want to have a credit score, let's make sure you know what to do in order to get that. First one is you have to get out a loan. You have to get a payment. That means that you're going to be throwing money to interest when you really could have just saved up and spent cash on it and not having to worry about credit. But you can pay bills on time, and that will also increase your credit score. They want to see that you're consistent and that you will consistently pay them back as well. Now, monitoring your credit utilization. This is your credit card balance, how much you have in debt. Now, the more you have in debt, the less that you are held back, bonded to someone else to be able to have to pay them back first. So if you show that you have less debt, then you're more likely to be able to pay back because you're going to be borrowing small amounts. So they're going to want you to do this. The way you can monitor it is going through Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. These are the 3 credit bureaus that you can go to who record your credit scores, get it from the retailers and your credit card companies, and basically pop out a number that tells you how well and how likely you are to pay back your debts. So keep this in mind. You want to be able to have a good credit score if you want to borrow. If you want to be debt-free and not have a credit score, that is fine too. But these are good places to go, especially to find out if someone else has taken a loan in your own name. So this is the best way of finding out if there's issues with your credit in the sense of identity theft. So otherwise, you're just waiting around for someone to take out a loan or sell your house from underneath you. That's what a identity theft thief could do. But by checking out these credit bureaus, they'll actually help you to understand if you have any debts out there that you might not have asked for. Okay, next one, limiting new credit applications. The less you go out for these loans, the better your score is going to get. The more loans you ask for, the less your credit score is going to get. So maintain a good mixture of trying to stay with whatever credit card companies you have or loans that you have. Stick with those. If you need to get a mortgage, that's fine. They're going to show that you have a diversity. And the difference is it's a credit card compared to a mortgage. So that actually does make a big difference. And then also the last one is maintaining a mix of credit types. So again, if you want to have a credit score, you want to have a mortgage, and you want to have a car loan, and you want to have a credit card debt, and you want to have an educational debt, and you want to have go on and on and on. So let me ask you this. Does that make sense? Do you really want to have all those lines of stress? Because all those lines of debt are hanging over your head. Now, again, if you want to have a good credit because you want to get into debt, this might not be the show for you. I mean, we're going to show you how to be a millionaire, whether you want to be debt-free or not. And we're going to show you how to start businesses, whether you're debt-free or not. But we're going to be talking about a lot of things that have to do with being debt-free, and that might be weighing over your head as well as all those other creditors that you owe. So keep this in mind. This is how you get out of debt. We talked about it yesterday. You can either pay back your loans, starting with the smallest ones, and then that's called a snowball effect. When all those payments that you were paying for the small one go into the next one, and you're paying the next one with both the money that you were spending on the first one and the second one, and then it keeps going into bigger debts, and you start off with a smaller one and get to the bigger one. Or you can do an avalanche, which is basically where you take the ones with the highest interest rates and you pay those off first. If you pay those off first, you have less going out as interest, and more you can put towards payments, but not until that big one, the one that has the biggest credit score, is paid off. So this is why the snowball effect is actually quite more attractive and understandably more effective. Okay, the next one is, and this should be it for everyone. This actually was number 1 yesterday. I'm going to repeat it. It's number 3, but it's actually number 1. Get a budget. Start living within your means. Stop getting out the credit card. Pay with cash. All those things help you to get out of debt because you're going to be paying back debt as you go, and you're going to be paying cash on everything else. You're not going to get into more debt. It's the best way of getting out. The last one, and it's not recommended, but it can happen, and it can help to alleviate some stress, but you better be right on the ball every time with the rest of your debt. And that's consolidating your debt, putting into one package. Now, if it's a higher interest rate, putting into one package, it's not worth it. It's not worth it because you're going to be paying a higher interest rate when you could be getting rid of all these smaller debts as you get closer to the big one. Now, if it is a much lower debt, it might be reasonable. So look into that. Again, this is a podcast for students mostly, but even adults need to hear this every once in a while. So this is how you get to be a healthy credit score. But at the same time, we're trying to be debt-free and we're trying to be millionaires. And you're not going to do it by just compiling your debt over and over again and having your debt score or your credit score drop. So in order to do this, in order to get to the next level, whether it's debt-free or a millionaire, you need to be able to keep your finances on a straight path. Be consistent with your payments and live within your means by writing a budget. Again, that is the number one thing. If you want to get out of debt, the best thing you can do is live on a budget. Yes, you can spend a little bit of money towards something, or you can go all in and get rid of that debt as fast as possible. The faster you get rid of the debt as possible, the faster you'll stop wasting money, the faster you can start putting that money towards investments and play. That's right. As soon as you get that debt paid off, there's a little bit extra money in there, and you can go splurge on something small, because you're still trying to save up for investments. Saving for a house probably, and then saving for investments. So keep track of this. These are the great things that you're going to be learning through this course. So stick with us. We're going to get back to you tomorrow with more. Actually, I think tomorrow is actually an exercise. Actually, we might not be doing it tomorrow because I have some work I've got to get done. That will be at the same time as I'm usually doing these. So I will catch you next Monday. Thank you so much for joining us on this Debt-Free Millionaire podcast, and we will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.